5 years ago, a man walks into a woman's locker room, to your point, still active with women, still dating women, walks into the women's locker room, disrobes entirely, fully exposed, fully intact, ladies. All that, where we're non-consensually being exploited. Right. A DA would follow this man into the locker room, pull him out, and he'd be arrested for voyeurism, indecent exposure, sexual harassment, whatever it is. But now not only is it allowed, it's like celebrated. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. This Leah Thomas, after all of this, each university gets to nominate one female athlete for NCAA Woman of the Year, which is the most prestigious honor you could win as a collegiate female athlete. And so University of Kentucky, they nominated me, which I was so honored by this because, of course, it encompasses your athletic achievement, but also your academic success, which I was the SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year, did some pretty incredible things academically, but also your community service, which was a big passion of mine in college and of course, even still now. And I was the SEC Community Service Leader of the Year. I won the highest humanitarian award that you could win of the entire student body, not just athletes, the entire student body at Kentucky. So I took a lot of pride in those things. And so when I was nominated for this award, I was so honored. We had Abby Steiner, who's breaking world records in track and field. We had the #1 WNBA draft pick from University of Kentucky. We had a national championship rifle team, national championship volleyball team. But they chose me. So I was so honored by this. Until the NCAA released a full list of the nominees, and Leah Thomas was who University of Pennsylvania had chosen. I know. I typically really just try and say Thomas is what I try and say.
That's a good thing to do, just Thomas.
Because my thing is like, okay, people could change their name legally on a birth certificate, whatever. You cannot change your sex.
You can't change your chromosomes.
No.
You have a Y or you have two X's.
Boom. But anyways, he was nominated for this NCAA Woman of the Year, which immediately devalued the award to me entirely. I didn't even want the stupid thing now. Meaningless. But all that to say, they celebrated it. But one more point about this NCAA Woman of the Year thing, and to speak to how this really has become almost this infringement on certainly this infringement on our First Amendment rights, because at this banquet, or really it was this conference type thing that the NCAA hosts every year where it's like a week-long thing. All the athletic directors come in, all the presidents, all the chancellors of all the universities. This is where they set their rules for the year and they go over all kinds of different mumbo jumbo, whatever. And so, but it's also where they announce their NCAA Woman of the Year award. And so, of course, I was invited to attend, having been nominated. So I decided I would go. But of course, I was not going to go in support of the NCAA and what they were doing. They also had a big convention hall where, companies and organizations could buy a booth and pass out pamphlets or whatever they wanted to do with their organization. So I figured, what better way to get in front of these athletic directors than to buy a booth? I'm going to buy a booth. And so I applied to buy a booth with my name. Of course, Riley Gaines. I'd been outspoken at this point. Denied. So I'm like, that's weird. I'm trying to give you guys money. I know the NCAA doesn't turn away money. Applied again with my same name. Denied. Came up with an alias. Applied. And they're like, of course we'll take your $2,000.
No, what?
But I get in there. Every single athletic director who walked by, again, of every university, thank you for doing what you're doing. Keep going. Of course, whispering, winking at me from across the way. I was passing out little bracelets of Title IX and just sharing to anyone who would listen about what happened. And every single one said, keep going, thank you. In the first 60 or so, I was like, this is awesome. And then I began to naturally feel frustrated by this. What's the discrepancy? I was told the higher-ups didn't agree, but that's not what I'm seeing. And so I began asking these athletic directors, okay, that's great, you agree. Would you be willing to put your name to it? Oh, no. You see, I have a family to feed. I can't lose my job. We don't want to be sued, whatever their excuse was, and would quickly turn and walk away. Even the president of the NCAA at the time was Mark Emmert, who had released a public statement at this point, a few days prior to the meet or a few days after that national championships, where he said he unequivocally stood in his decision to allow Leah Thomas to swim with the women because it was based in evolving science, is what he says. But privately, I know.
Evolving?
You didn't know science evolved? Bigot. But privately, at this conference, I see him and he says, keep going, keep fighting. As if he's not the one that I'm fighting.